We are starting chapter 7, starting with the end of chapter 6. We began discussing how this world is a world of klipa, meaning the barrier, the husk, the shell, that which conceals God's energy. And we explained at length, mystically, God's energy becoming more and more and more constricted to ultimately come into this world, to ultimately have a physical world where the high majority of the world doesn't sense it's God's source at all, feels separate, feels independent from God, who is within and vivifying every aspect of every detail of all of creation. That's the bulk of this world. The high majority of this world is coming through the conveyor belt called klipas noiga. There's klipas tameos, which are very thick barriers, the walnut shell, the brick wall, that we can't access the godliness inside of it. And there's a lighter shell or husk, which is a barrier, but I can see, I can access, I can utilize the God energy inside of it, which means I can really shift it. When I take an item that has its vitality from klipas noiga, and I use it to serve God, I do a commandment with it, I use it for the sake of God, so that spiritual energy shifts. The shell, the husk, the barrier separates from the God shine inside of it. Then that God energy is strengthened. And then that God energy is elevated to the realm of holiness, what we call Kedusha. And then the husk, the shell, ceases to exist because it has nothing that's vivifying it. Until now, what was vivifying it was that God energy inside. But now that that God energy separated from it and actually moved to an entirely different dimension of straight godliness, Kedusha, it's got no relationship to this husk. So the husk has no life source. It ceases to exist. So that happens when we utilize properly the permissible of this world. Because as we were saying at the end of chapter 6, the majority of this world is klipa, most of which is klipas noiga. Anything permissible is klipas noiga. Anything forbidden is klipas. To the end of chapter 6, we very briefly ran through what's forbidden. Anything God said no, any thought, any speech, any feeling, any action that God said no, the soul and body of the non-Jew, of the animals that are forbidden, of the vegetation that's forbidden. But that's a minority of the world. The majority of this world, in terms of the items of this world, is permissible, which means the majority is receiving its life from klipas noiga. And here the Jew now gets involved and utilizes anything that innately is receiving its life from klipas noiga and using it to serve God. Vates, as we were just saying, separates the godliness from the shell, strengthens that godliness ascends to the realm of holiness, Kedusha, and the shell ceases to exist. That is what is happening when we use all that's permissible of this world for God, directly in a commandment or for the sake of God. So let's read this inside. Chapter 7. But the but is because the end of last chapter, we listed everything that gets us life from klipas theos, right? From that energy that we cannot utilize except by negation, except by being tempted and not giving in, and thus lessening its power. That's the only way we can utilize the forbidden. That took us a few lines of Tanya. Now we're going to talk at length, and what do we do with the permissible? But now we're talking about the permissible. Nefesh hachiyunis habahamit to be Yisrael. That's the most important thing for us on the list. The vital animal soul of the Jew. The Jew body, klipas noiga. Animal soul, klipas noiga. Godly soul, kedusha, straight godliness, no barriers. Literally a piece of God. And evil inclination, klipas tameos. First thing on our list, because this is the most important thing for us. Meaning every single Jew, is in this world with a mission to give this world to God, a mission to use as much of this world as I can. Whatever you can use for God, it's good to use. If it's for self, it's wrong and overindulgence. If it's for God, it's good. If you're looking at something and you want it for self, better to abstain. You want it to give it to God, more and more and more. Because I'm here to give this world to God. The most significant thing I need to give to God is myself, which doesn't mean my godly soul. My godly soul is a piece of God. The core of my godly soul is from the core of God himself. My godly soul grows through my journey in this world. Above, it's all God, all good, all God. Come into this world, there's concealments and there's barriers. And my godly soul has to pull out her strength, use her muscles, do something that doesn't exist above, serve irrationally. Above it all makes sense. Here's where it doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of growth for my godly soul being here. But that's not my point and my purpose. I'm not in this world to refine my godly soul. My godly soul is refined. She grows, she gains. Everything's fair by God. Coming down is a big descent, and there's a big ascent to my soul through her journey. But that's not why I'm here. That's not giving something to God he didn't already have. What I'm giving to God that, so to speak, he didn't already have, primarily, is my animal soul and my body. Animal soul and body are very good partners. Refining one spills over to the other. So that's why the first thing on this list is the animal soul of the Jew, because all I'm doing is impacting my animal soul. Everything good I do refines my animal soul, gives her over to God. Everything bad I do, meaning not godly, bad doesn't mean evil, horrible, it means not godly, strengthens my animal soul in the wrong direction, makes her klipa stronger and coarser and worse. So second by second, beat by beat of my entire life, I'm impacting my animal soul, my body. Every single thing I do, every single second, is making more godly or making less godly. Almost never am I doing something and it's status quo. So a person could be born with a nice little shepsela, a little lamb of an animal. That's possible. And then through years of my existence, I made that animal a wild boar. Very possible. And we could take an animal soul and through serving God, we take the animal and we make it so refined. Because every time I do anything good, my animal soul is involved. Unwittingly, hauntingly, hostage, but involved. Right now, we're learning Torah. Our minds are processing godly thought. So what does it mean when my mind is processing godly thought? It means my godly soul is in control. My godly soul has seized control of my brain, my power of thought. So the godly soul, utilizing her, as we would say, levush hamachshava, her power of thought, is controlling my human power of thought and my physical cells, the brain matter. But my godly soul never directly interfaces with my body or with anything else in the physical world. She's too holy, she's too godly. So every single time my godly soul is in control over my thoughts, over my feelings, over my speech, over my actions, she's always using the medium, the interface of the animal soul. Right now, at this second, as I'm learning Tanya, my godly soul is reigning. Her power of thought is expressing itself using my animal soul's power of thought, through which she's controlling my human brain's power of thought, through which she's ultimately affecting my brain itself. So that means every time I'm learning Torah, my animal soul's involved. Every time I'm giving charity, my animal soul's involved. Every time I'm praying, my animal soul's involved. Every time I'm being nice to someone, my animal soul's involved. Every single time my godly soul is ever utilized, my animal soul is part of the picture. So we can understand how every second my animal soul is getting closer to God, because every second I'm serving God, my animal soul is involved, like it or not, involved. And conversely, every second I'm not serving God, my animal soul is getting strengthened in the other direction. So this is my main challenge, reason for being, mission, to give God my animal soul and my body. Again, I'm saying animal soul, but my animal soul and body are a team. One's a physical, one's spiritual, but it becomes like one entity. And therefore, this is the first thing on the list. It's the most important thing for us. Let's finish describing the animal soul. But the vital animal soul of the Jew, Shemitzat HaKlipa, again, not the godly soul, the one coming through the barrier of Klipa, the shell, Hamluveshes Bedam Ha'adam, canal, which as we learned above, is engarbed in the blood of the person, because blood is the life, and the life is one of the functions of the animal soul. The animal soul has the job of being the medium between the godly soul and the body. The animal soul has the job of being our challenge, our weights to pull out the strength of the godly soul. The animal soul has the job ultimately, when the person is a tzaddik or by the redemption by of directly serving God. And the animal soul also has the job of vivifying the body, which just as in our physical reality, our life comes from our blood. In our spiritual reality, the animal soul in the blood is giving the life. Now, the animal soul doesn't have power on her own. It's the same story I was saying until now. The godly soul is what gives life to the body, but the godly soul can't directly interface with the body. So the godly soul's power of life is transferred via the animal soul through the bloodstream of the body. So the animal soul is the vital soul giving life because the godly soul is behind it giving life. So that's all the first thing on the list. What's next on my list? Machila. And all kingdom, domesticated animals, wild animals, birds, fish, all that are pure, all that are permissible to be eaten. Just as we said on the list of the forbidden, chaos, end of chapter 6, everything we can't eat. So now we're saying anything permissible means it's getting its vitality through klipas noga. This physical world has to go through klipas noga. That's like the processing that allows entry into this world. So everything physical goes through klipas noga. Some then descend further into klipas tameos, if God forbade them. But if they're permissible, they went through klipas noga, and now they have the energy of klipas noga, and now the Jew can come along and bring them up to God. And similarly, just as everything in the animal kingdom that's permissible to be eaten went through klipas noga and nothing else, nothing worse than that, well, also the vitality, the existence of everything inanimate and vegetation that's permissible to be eaten, any produce that's permissible to be eaten, which is 99% of all produce, except as we said, if there's something situational that we discussed last week, like karam, and inanimate, like salt. Anything permissible, anything that God says, yes, by definition, we know it's klipas noiga. As we will soon learn, it's untied. It's not forbidden, which means bound up and tied to evil. It's untied. I can shift it to God. And also, so first we said my animal soul, most important thing on the list. And then we said from this entire world, all the items, all the objects, body and soul, or body and life force, that's permissible. And additionally, besides the objects of this world that are permissible, the vitality and existence of everything of me, all my actions, all my speech, all my thoughts in the world, that have no trace of prohibition. They're that all biblically, rabbinically to a shred of a prohibition, but they're not for the sake of heaven. Because if they were for the sake of heaven, they would be snug either. So it's this rare balance, the will and desire and the taiva, that power of passion and desire of the body, and even the need of the body and its existence. But the person's intention is not for the sake of heaven. The person is not thinking now of serving God with his body. If you're thinking of serving God with your body, if that's why you're doing what you're doing, it's godly. You've raised it to Kedusha. But if you're not thinking about serving God with your body, let's know better than speeches and thoughts. I mean, from the animal soul herself. So the Rebbe is saying, I'm giving you what's klipas noiga. I gave you klipas tameos. It was a short, concise list. Done. Nothing to talk about. Forbidden. Now I'm giving you the list of klipas noiga, and then we're going to talk for quite a while. We're going to talk for 2 chapters, the rest of chapter 7 and chapter 8, because there's a lot to talk about. As we said, permissible is a lot trickier than forbidden. Forbidden is don't. Permissible is do it for God. So what was our list? Our list was my animal soul, which again, animal soul and body, most significant area of the whole list, as I discussed at length. And then the second, if I want to group it together, the second broad category in the list, everything permissible in this world. All the domesticated and wild animals and the birds and the fish and the produce and the inanimate, everything permissible, because it's all permissible, so I can use it to serve God. And then what the third item on the list was, in a broad category, my actions, my thoughts, my feelings, my speech, that are klipas noiga. What do I mean that are klipas noiga? The high majority of items of this world are klipas noiga. My actions are almost never klipas noiga. Sometimes they start off klipas noiga, but they're going to go up or they're going to go down. So they're saying, what makes your action klipas noiga? It can't be forbidden and it can't be for God. If you're doing something forbidden, if you're doing something biblically prohibited, that's not an action, thought, or speech of klipas noiga. It's an action, thought, or speech of klipas tameos. It's prohibited. It's forbidden. You're speaking words of gossip. That's klipas. You're eating pork. That's klipas. You're stealing. That's klipas. You're doing something prohibited. Done. Finished. Klipas tameos. Or you could do things that are serving God. You're studying Torah. You're praying. You're saying psalms. You're serving God. Or you could take the permissible items of this world, them to God. So the items you're dealing with are klipas noiga, but your actions or thoughts or feelings or speech are kedusha. So you're taking something of klipas noiga, like your cell phone, not forbidden and not godly, permissible, klipas noiga, and you are using your cell phone to serve God. You're calling someone and that you know is not feeling well, and you're giving them a call to help them feel better. You're speaking to someone who is going through a crisis and you're asking how you can help, and you're telling her the food you're going to send her for Shabbos, and a million other ways. So this is an item of Klipas Noiga. This is a cell phone. But me, what I'm doing, how I'm interfacing with this item, my thoughts, my speech, my actions, they're Kedusha, they're holy, they're godly, they're mitzvahs, they're for the sake of God. So right away, this item is shifted as I'm using it to Kedusha, to godliness, because I am doing a godly act with it. If I take a coin and I put it in a charity box, the coin is Klipas Noiga. But my action is not Klipas Noiga. My action is Kedusha. I'm doing a mitzvah. So when I am doing a godly deed by taking this money and giving it to charity, the money shifts with my action from Klipas Noiga to Kedusha, to godliness. So the majority of the work is Klipas Noiga. In my reality, I almost never am doing an act, a thought, a speech, a feeling of Klipas Noiga. I could be interfacing with items of Klipas Noiga. But generally, as I use them, it's an action or thought or feeling or speech of Klipa, of forbidden, of evil, or of Kedusha, of godliness. So when I take that money and I steal it, the money started off Klipas Noiga, but I am doing something of Klipas Tmeas with it. I stole it, which brings down that Klipas Noiga to Klipas Tmeas. I schlepped it down through my action. And conversely, when I take that money and give it to charity, the money's Klipas Noiga, but I'm doing something godly with it. I'm doing a mitzvah with it. So I take that money and it elevates it to the realm of Kedusha, as I, body, animal soul, godly soul, are all shifting to Kedusha through the power of this mitzvah, this commandment of charity. So for me as a human being, I start off by touching, utilizing things of Klipas Noiga, my space, my thought, speech, and deed, generally, might be going down by doing something prohibited, forbidden, biblically or by the rabbis, or doing something godly, doing a commandment, biblically or rabbinically, or doing something that might not even be called a commandment, the Rebbe says, but is l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. It's being a godly person doing something godly with my life. Or it could be preparing for a mitzvah. When you're going shopping, what mitzvah are you doing as you stock up food in your cabinets? If you're feeding yourself, a Jew, your spouse, your children, whoever you're feeding with that food, and those people are leading lives for God, shopping is also part of that, because you got to eat to live. So shopping, it's not a mitzvah, it's not a godly act. But if the food is kosher food that I'm using to sustain the lives of Jews, it's for the sake of God. It's l'shem shamayim, even if I'm not consciously thinking it. So therefore, it's already shifting in a godly realm. But the Rebbe says, if someone is doing something in this very narrow category of need, your life is not for God, therefore your physical actions are not for God, this is not a commandment, this is not for the sake of heaven, and at the same time, this is not a prohibition, and this is not an indulgence. Need, that would mean your action, your thought, your speech is in the realm of Klipas Noiga. Very rare. But even if you start off with Klipas Noiga and you take something permissible, but you're using it for indulgence, it's already falling down. It's Klipas Noiga. It's a permissible apple, but there's really a lot of indulgence in eating that apple. So it's what's technically called taivas heter. It's an indulgence in the permissible. So it's like a lowering of Klipas Noiga. It's still Klipas Noiga, but it's a descent of Klipas Noiga. But the way it stays just Klipas Noiga in terms of myself, action, thought, speech, feeling, is if it's need. Not a mitzvah, not for the sake of heaven, not a transgression, not an indulgence. And as I said, pretty rare. Any questions on any of this?
But Shabbos is different.
You're saying Shabbos, if you eat, then it's automatically l'shem shamayim?
Tainug on Shabbos is okay.
I don't know. If it's a tainug for Shabbos, it's okay. If it's a tainug for yourself and you're using Shabbos as an excuse, I don't think it's any different.
But what is the difference of tainug for Shabbos? I mean, how would you define tainug for Shabbos?
What I would say a tainug for Shabbos is a person who's very conscious of Shabbos and therefore allowing themselves to have the tainug. Like if you could imagine someone who says, I really enjoy chocolate, but I don't want to eat it. So you know what? On Shabbos, I'm going to have the chocolate, because when I'm eating the chocolate, which I will enjoy, I'm very conscious it's Shabbos, and that's why I'm enjoying it. So that would be a pleasure for Shabbos. Yes, it's a physical pleasure. But for this person, that physical sensation of pleasure is Shabbos, because that's the only reason I'm allowing myself to have it. that would be very holy and beautiful, and a physical pleasure that's totally for Shabbos and would totally be elevated 100%. But conversely, the person that eats chocolate every other day of the week also, and now it's chocolate out, it's dessert, and you're munching on chocolate and enjoying it, you're not thinking about Shabbos. Your head has nothing to do with Shabbos. It's chocolate. So the fact that, yes, you are having pleasure, and yes, it's Shabbos, doesn't put a stamp of approval on the eating, because there's nothing in your brain that's going on Shabbos. I'm sure you know the famous story with the Baal Shem Tov, with the ox, with the shtreimel. Yeah, L'Shem Shabbos Kodesh, but you're eating it as an animal. It didn't shift because you ate it on Shabbos. But if a person's pleasure is because it's Shabbos, that's why I'm having this pleasure, then absolutely, and 100%. And that's a beautiful way to serve God with delicious food for God's sake. Specifically with holidays, we have the concept of eating special foods for the holiday, of having meat, of having special wines, of having nuts and candies, specifically for holidays. So if a person is saying, wow, I never buy meat, but I know on the holiday I'm supposed to have meat. So they have meat because they know on the holiday they're supposed to have meat, and they make the roast and everybody enjoys it. But yeah, that was specifically because it's the holiday. It's the only reason I'm having meat on my table is because it's a holiday. So that eating is connected to the holiday. So that would be a holy expression of a pleasure in the food, because that's why you're having it. You wouldn't have this except this is how the sages said is a way to enhance and give honor to the holiday. So we definitely can do what Bracha is saying, but we can't fool ourselves. We have to do it properly. The we can use of the physical world and elevate, the more the better. It says that for everything of this world that we saw and we didn't eat, we're going to have a problem. The concept is, you're a Jew. You could eat this. You can elevate this. You cannot give this to God. It's a problem. Also, the Baal Shem Tov says the same point from a different angle, that when you look at some food, permissible kosher food, and you want it, you desire it, you should know your soul desires the spirituality of that food. Imagine eating like that, because I know my soul wants to elevate the spirituality of that food, to release the spirituality of that food, to give that spirituality to God. So therefore, and this is a very nuanced, delicate thought, the more I can use this physical world for God, I should use as much as I can. But if it's not for God, if it's for self, it's for indulgence, I shouldn't do it. That's why the followers, the Hasidim of the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, the author of the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, said, what's forbidden is forbidden, and what's permissible is also not so necessary. What do you mean? It's permissible. Aren't you supposed to give it to God? Didn't you learn Tanya? Yeah, but learning enough Tanya, they understand that it's not so easy to elevate it, and maybe instead I can get pulled down by it. So when you know yourself and you know you can give this to God, this is a wonderful opportunity to give this to God. If I can take this food and give it to someone else who needs food, I gave that food to God. If I can make this and use this to enhance the Shabbos or the holidays, and it's clear that's why I'm doing it, that's beautiful. I'm giving it to God. If I'm doing something in my house, I'm redoing something in my house, and I tell my children and myself, redemption's coming. We're getting our house ready. We're making our house more beautiful to go to Jerusalem. I'm giving it to God. But if any of those things that are permissible, but I'm no longer the master of them, I'm not the master lifting them up and giving them to God, but rather they're in control and I'm not. The item is ruling and not me, which means it's permissible, that's going down into the realm of desires and pleasures and indulgences. That's the situation where we say, better not, better abstain if you can, because it's permissible and you're pulling it down into a lower realm. Any other thoughts or questions on any of this?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure, Esther.
It's very understandable what a big mitzvah all this shopping is, and serving your family, your friends who are serving God, even doing the laundry for family, whatever we do in the mundane sense, when we're using it for other Jews who are Shomer Shabbos, members of our family, guests we're having, that's really great. But what if one is shopping and making food and providing shelter for another Jew, and this person isn't Shomer Shabbos?
For you, it's a godly act. You're helping another Jew. That's a godly act. No question.
And maybe the potential.
You don't even have to go to there. helping another physicality is your spirituality. So if you provide food or clothing or shelter for a Jew, you are doing something godly, meaning they end up doing something godly with the food. That's a separate story. But your story, your shopping, your cooking, your serving, you're spending your money and your time, all of that is a service of God. All of that is helping one of God's children. Every Jew is God's only child. You are helping God's only child by giving them food, by giving them shelter, by giving them support. That's a beautiful act. You could be dedicating your life for the physical needs of another Jew, and that's all godliness. We just said that when a person is doing thought or speech or action, not for the sake of God, not the commandment, just like for need, is no better, so to speak, than the animal soul itself, meaning it's klipas noiga. The whole thing is the realm of the klipas noiga, which we said it's only hovering in that realm of klipas noiga because it's need. Very, very rare situation. Once it's indulgence, it's already going to lower in klipas noiga, and if it falls into prohibited, obviously lower in klipas meis. So now to review this to make sure it's very clear. We'll take a dollar bill. You take the dollar bill and you use it to buy food to sustain another Jew. The dollar bill is going to God, godliness. And if I take that dollar bill and use it for charity, godliness, the mitzvah of charity. And if I take that dollar bill and buy modest clothing, specifically buying those modest clothing to dress as God wants, godliness, and a myriad of other ways. But the dollar bill is stolen, goes into the realm of the prohibited. The dollar bill is used in a way that God doesn't permit. Someone's buying drugs with it, it's going down. The dollar bill is used for an indulgence. It's not prohibited, but again, it was that chocolate. It's descending lower within the klipas noiga itself. The dollar bill is used for your sustenance. You bought your toothpaste with it. It stays in klipas noiga. No better, the Rebbe is saying, than the animal soul herself in her raw state, klipas noiga. V'akol kasher lakol nishba nimshach medreg hashenish shebeklipas v'sitra achra shi klipa revis hanikres klipas noiga. Shalom ha'es. Everything we've said on this list is that second level of those shells, of those klipa. If we're calling it second level, level one, the completely prohibited, what we discussed at the end of last chapter. Level two, that which vivifies the permissible, what we're discussing now, of the shells of the other side. As we said, anything that receives vitality from any form of klipa, the forbidden ones or the permissible ones are all called sitra achra, the other side, not God's side, the other side. That is, now we're giving it a different number. First, we said it's a second level. First level, klipas tameos, anything that's prohibited. Second level, klipas noiga, vivifying the permissible, which she is. This klipas noiga is called the klipa. Why is it called the fourth? Because we had three impure, and now number four is that which vivifies the permissible, called klipas noiga in this world, which is called the world of Asiya, of our four spiritual worlds, Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. This is Asiya, the world of action, the lowest of the four worlds, where it's primarily evil, good interwoven within it. What the Rebbe is saying here is, nothing just starts from this world. Everything goes through the progression of all the spiritual worlds, of what we call the worlds of tikkun, the worlds of rectification, where we have Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, the spiritual realities, emanation, of creation, of formation, of descent. Every energy, including energy that comes down in this world as klipa, has to go through all of these worlds. Nothing just poof, starts off here. This is a progression going through all the worlds. So this klipas noiga reality also goes through all the four worlds. But in the world of Atzilus, the world of emanation, it's complete God energy, as is everything in the world of Atzilus. It's only the highest God energy. But then it goes down further into the world of Bria, the world of creation, where now begins what we would call a sense of self, some slight sense of separation from God. Nothing bad. There's nothing bad in any of these spiritual worlds, but self. And then it descends further into the world of Yetzira, the world of formation. And then there's a lot more of that self. And then it descends further into the spiritual reality of Asiya, of descent, where there's a lot of self that coming into our physical reality creates what we call evil. What is evil? Evil means blockage of God. So if a horse is evil, horse energy is klipas tameos, can't eat a horse. What's evil about a horse? A horse can be a very nice, gentle animal. True. But the spiritual energy is blocking God. That's what we mean by evil. So some things in our world overtly look bad, nasty, horrible, corrupt, disgusting, abhorrent. And some things could look like a horse. Klipas is total blockage of that godly energy. Can't use it at all for God. So anything in this world that's evil, God completely blocked, that's only in this world. But this energy of Klipa that came to our world, like everything else, had to go through all those higher spiritual realities where there's only God. But over the 4 spiritual worlds, the godliness energy is getting more and more muted, more and more constricted, as we discussed 2 weeks ago, and the cause and effect, something from nothing. And the godly energy is getting more and more and more constricted until we come to our world. And in our world, it's such a blockage on the God energy that what's vivified we call evil. Either evil because I can't use it to serve God, though it seems to me benign and innocuous, but God said no, or evil in a way that I would view it as like, oh, wow, that's horrible. That's evil. Total blockage of God, total antithesis of God energy. But in it is that klipa, which really, if I could trace it back, 4 spiritual worlds in the world of Atzilus, that klipa exists and it's a God energy. Everything starts off as a God energy. So that's what the Rebbe's point is here. In our world, in this world, in the physical manifestation of the final spiritual world of Asiya, of descent, in our world, it looks bad. But this has emerged in this evolution through these 4 spiritual worlds, starting off in the highest world, the world of emanation, the world of Atzilus, where it's pure God energy that then got minimized and descended and minimized until it could vivify in our world something that could be the antithesis of God's will, an item forbidden by God from Klivas Tmeos, or an item permissible, but currently still on the other side. Anything of either strain of Klipa, Klivas Tmeos or Klipas Naiga, Sitra Achra, the other side, meaning that dollar bill I was talking about, if it was never used, never went up and never went down, it's not innately good. It's evil. It's Klipas Naiga. It's Sitra Achra. It's the other side. It's a blockage of God. The Jew can come along and take it and give it to charity and it becomes Kedusha. That's the beauty and potential of Klipas Naiga. It can shift. I can send it right up to Kedusha. I can send it right up to godliness. But that's when I get involved. If the dollar bill just sits there in a banker's drawer and does nothing, it's Klipas Naiga. It's a blockage. It's Sitra Achra. It's the other side. It's a piece of evil, meaning what's evil about this innocuous dollar bill? A barrier in God's energy. But because it's Klipas Naiga, I can use it directly, bringing it to God, directly shifting its energy, separating the God energy from the evil, from the Klipa, strengthening the God energy. The God energy is elevated to Kedusha, to the realm of revealed God, and the shells, the husks, the barriers, they cease to exist.